Okay, I think I'm on. Can you hear me? This is going to be a learning curve, but that's why I want to do this tonight because I'm hoping to do more of a body doubling stream tomorrow because I have some things I need to work on that I think will be fun to share. My kids are out of school next week, and I have not got our summer systems in place, so I wanted to talk about that tomorrow. So tonight, I'm trying to figure all of this out. So if you're here and you can hear me, I've never streamed before. So let's see if I can figure out how this works. Oh, hey, there you go. Hi, I'm going to be working on a bunch of stuff too. So that's kind of what this is about for body doubling. I don't know if any of you are familiar with body doubling, but maybe, let's see, now how do I make it? Okay, we're figuring these things out. Thanks for hanging out with me while I do that. Can you guys hear me okay? Volume on the mic sound okay? Let me know if it's crazy. I appreciate your help. So, what was I saying? Body doubling. ADHD. Body doubling, the name of it came from film, where, when they have someone who kind of looks like you come and stand in while they do the lighting, that person's called your body double, and they can kind of take your place on set for a while. But in ADHD, we have commandeered the term a little bit. I'm not sure exactly how it started. It started with a lot of ADHD coaches, I think. But the bottom line is, there's not a lot of research done on it yet. But anecdotally, it helps a lot of people with ADHD to have another person in the room working alongside them. Whether or not that person is working on the same task or helping you in any way, that can happen. That can be great. But just having the presence of another person helps us to keep on task and be more productive. Maybe that's part of our history of trying to people please. But, oh man, this is going to be tough for me to not get distracted by the chat. We're going to work on it. I don't know this film. I just know it because, random story, my best friend in middle school and parts of high school, she was involved in acting and stuff. Her a little bit less so. She kind of just had some small parts in a few TV shows and movies, but her younger sister, who was a year younger than us, was on a long-running TV series when I was in junior high. It was called Promised Land. It was a spinoff of Touched by an Angel. I don't know if any of you remember that show. But anyway, I used to go on set with them sometimes and hang out. So that's where I always knew the term body double. They had another girl who was like her same height, same hair color, and they would put them both in the same clothes so that she didn't always have to be on set when they set their lighting. And her body double, like she was, I say it started when she was like 11, 12 maybe, and her body double was an adult. So anyway, interesting and random tangent, but welcome to ADHD. Well, I'm going to have to add that to my movie list because that sounds fun. I like Melanie Griffith a lot. Anyway, a body double can act as an accountability partner, someone you can check in with and kind of answer to for work you're supposed to be doing. But that's not a necessary component. Sometimes just having another person in the room helps us keep on task, whether that's the energy of another person working helps us to work. But it can be really effective. It's gained a lot of traction and popularity during COVID shutdowns when everyone was working from home, because all of a sudden you don't have an office full of people who are working. So it's really easy to kind of get off task. And so people would kind of team up with a buddy over Zoom. So they would, be able to take breaks and chat with someone and go get some work done, and everybody's working kind of at the same time. So I have a puppy back here. We're training a service dog for my 7-year-old. And she pretty much just hangs out with me all the time right now. So she's on the floor back there. So I'm checking to make sure she's not getting into anything. But she's asleep. Yeah. This. Just sometimes that background noise keeps that part of your brain that's crazy focused on something. I just have a really hard time working in quiet and without other people. Body doubling can be a really fun and extremely useful tool. So it does have its drawbacks. And thanks for being here, the family IT dude. It can be distracting if it's not the right person. And if you get distracted by other people, it can be just another way to procrastinate. But what I want to do on this channel with body doubling is something that way back when Clubhouse was a little bit more of a thing, and it's a little bit more of a thing internationally. It never really gained a ton of traction here in the US, but one thing I did find on there was these Clubhouse rooms for body doubling, where first 10 minutes of every hour, or 5 minutes, everyone would hop on and say what they were going to work on for the next hour. And then we'd set a timer and work for 45 minutes and then take a break together. And so that kind of accountability of this is what I'm working on, and then scheduled breaks together to kind of, okay, how'd you do? What'd you get done? What music are you listening to? Things like that. And so another thing I plan to do with the body doubling is create playlists that obviously depending on how I do it, can't always play through the channel, but I'll let you know what I'm listening to. I do have some stock music that I've purchased so far. I plan to get some more eventually. So I can play that on the stream for people for background music. But if you don't like that music, you can pick whatever you want. But I like to rotate through a lot of different types of music. I have a very eclectic music taste. The best way I explain to people my music taste is my 2 favorite bands of all time, my whole life since I was in high school, have been Aerosmith and Ani DeFranco. And I don't think you can get 2 more different genres than those 2. So, I plan to make some playlists that are timed so we can kind of all say, hit play together, do some work, and then come back together at the end of the hour and chat and catch up and stretch our legs and take those scheduled breaks that we AHers tend to need. So, if you have any questions and you kind of want to just chat, I'm going to keep an eye on that. Hi, Erin. Thanks for jumping on. I'm figuring out this whole thing, how StreamYard works and how streams work. And I'll stay on as long as people want to hang out. I've got a lot of work to do. Here's my tips, my productivity tips. I've been using my iPad for my dump book lately, but I have it set up down here as a second screen for my laptop. So I'm back to paper. I don't know about any of you, but do you guys have notebook addictions? Because I majorly do. All the notebooks, I have boxes and boxes of notebooks. My favorite are the composition notebooks that you get for like school. And Walmart puts them on really good deal every year at back to school time. And I just can't not buy more. So I legitimately have, I think, 2 full file boxes of blank composition notebooks. It started out as a way to keep me organized. I used to have them in school for like one for every class, and now I have like one for every topic known to man. And I ended up carrying around like at least 6 composition notebooks at once. So finally last year I got an iPad with an Apple Pencil, and then I have I think GoodNotes is what we use, but I have a notepad, so I have like 12 different notepads within my iPad. But like I said, I'm using my iPad for the second screen. So I'm back to just a blank notebook. This is a boring one. This one's a more fun one. I don't know if you see that. It's from Rad and Happy. I love her stuff. I don't know if you've ever checked her out. She's on Instagram and she just has really great planners. I have a couple of her planners that are undated, which is key, because then when you stop using it for a while and you pick it back up, you don't feel guilty and you haven't lost any pages. And they're laid out really well. So if you're looking at planners, and I know you're probably like me and you have a collection of those too, but I like Rad and Happy's planners. So yeah, dump book. If any of you used a dump book before, I love all the pens. These are my favorite currently in all the colors. Let's see if I can get my camera to focus on it. See, things I have to learn. This is what they all do. Oh, hey, look, it works. I love these. Woo! It has whacked my iPad. All the colors. And then my Sharpie box. It's a problem. I also really like these friction pens, the erasable ones. Again, you can get them in all the colors. Okay, dump book. Yes, Rad and Happy. Look it up on Instagram. That's where she does most of her stuff. She's just a little small designer, but I think her stuff is really cute. She has a little coloring page subscription, and those are fun to color on my iPad, and I print them out for my kids, but I like her planners. Okay, dump pad. This is the key to all things ADHD productivity. And I keep it out and by me at all times, because when we're working on one thing, all the other things that pop into your brain, right? If I follow any of those trails, I'm never coming back to what I'm supposed to be working on. But if I don't do something about the intrusive little thought, it's going to just keep nagging at me until I do something about it. So that's what the dump pad is for. If a thought pops into my head, an idea, something I need to look up. Oh yeah, I need to call so-and-so. Oh, someone needs prescriptions filled. When I'm in an hour of working on a specific subject, it goes on the dump pad, whatever it is. Once it's out of my brain and onto paper, then I can let it go and I can come back to it later. And half the time they're just dumb, random thoughts that I can just ignore. I don't need to follow up on. But if it's something important, I can then put it in my to-do list, into my planner, into my phone, make the phone call. But once it's out of my brain and onto the paper, my ADHD will let go of it and I can get back to work. So I take 3 seconds to write it down rather than all of the tabs on Google. Not to say that I don't always have a lot of tabs open. Currently on my phone, I have 154 open tabs because that's what I do also. If I see something and I open the link, but I don't necessarily want to look at it right then, it just stays in an open tab until I have time to deal with it. And clearly, I don't do a great job of clearing them out. Need to come up with a better system for that. Yeah, I have several emails for work and otherwise. And so this is a real problem. I think I probably get 500 emails a day. Most of them are subscriptions to things I don't really need. But I still want to get those because when there's a sale and things like that, I want to know about it. But yeah, all the emails. Yeah, the only thing that keeps me from that is that sometimes when I'm working, having too many bogs down my laptop battery. And so I have to close them from time to time. But I try to go through periodic. I try to make sure that it doesn't get above 200 on my phone. So I go through and take out ones that are no longer relevant. But I do have some that are open tabs that have been there since I got this phone. And some that came over when my phone, like when they transferred everything to my phone. So yeah, it's a problem. Yeah, that can be a problem too. For that, I would recommend two things. Either use more of like a structured planner page, where you just have, and you can also do just an area of whatever you're working on. Just put like a column down the side for dump things, or the opposite page. That can work too if you don't want to have a separate book. But the kind of paper I like, number one, keep the notebook small. It helps. Because then I can just turn a page and not feel like I'm wasting a ton of paper. That cheap notebooks also help with that. But I like notebooks that have dots. Can you see that? I'll see if I can get that to focus. A dot grid. This is another Rat and Happy little notebook. Her drawings are just cute. And these little notebooks, I don't know if she even sells these anymore, but they're like the perfect size where you don't feel like guilty about starting a new notebook. Yeah, smaller, and then the little dots can kind of help with that, because either it makes it really easy for you to like make a cute little rectangle around something, or I don't know, for some reason it's easier for me to not worry about it being a mess. I think it's just easier for me to keep it tidy on the dots. I don't do as well with lined paper. I don't stay on the lines, and so it just ends up being a mess. But yeah, my dump book is kind of my saving grace if I'm like, I really got to get some work done. Because as soon as I start on one thing, all the other things I need to do come flooding into my head. And then I get overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. So prioritization, another one of those executive functioning skills that doesn't work so well. All right, see, I'm writing this down in my dump book as we speak, because all the notebooks. Problem is I'm also a little bit cheap, so I wait till they all go on sale and then I buy them in bulk. It's ridiculous. ADHD tax. Hipponoto notebooks. See, fountain pens, I haven't ever really gotten it. I don't know. I can't make them work. My handwriting is a problem. I also have these that are really pretty that I haven't used yet because they're like too special to use. It's a problem. I know this comment here. These I just got at TJ Maxx and they were on sale, and I got a bunch for gifts and then kept a few for myself. I just love notebooks. I don't know about the theme system journal, but it sounds, I know with the dotted, it's what a lot of people who do bullet journaling use, because it's blank, but not totally blank. So you can kind of make it look however you want. I've just found that it just helps me keep organized. I've tried doing bullet journaling a few times and it got really overwhelming. And then it started to look too much like scrapbooking kind of stuff for me, of just like decorating for the sake of decorating. And I can appreciate people who can do that kind of stuff. I'm just not really one of them. My like creativity is very mathematical, I guess. I love photography because it's basically math. I like things to be very symmetrical, and I get a little perfectionistic. So I never could get into the scrapbooking thing, and then bullet journaling started to feel a lot that way. But I did like that you could kind of customize it, because that's always my issue with finding a planner that I like, is it's never quite what I want it to be. Another reason why I kind of like the Rad and Happy is it's like got enough structure to it that I can, like, it's a planner. Like, I'm trying to pull over this other one that I have of hers. It's bigger. This is her teacher planner. But it's like, I think she does. It's gonna be really hard to see. I'm figuring out how my camera works. There we go. So it's got enough structure to it that it isn't completely bare bones, but I can write in kind of lines however I want them and kind of customize it a little bit. Let's see if this one that I used a little bit more can. I'm sure you all have tried all the planners like I have. Where did I just put that? Seriously, I just had it. There it is. Okay, so I'm losing it. But, and then the other thing that I like about her planners is she puts little coloring pages in between. But maybe it's in my other one. I didn't do it to this one as much. But you can kind of divide up these little sections however you want. So I will sometimes like put lines down here for different categories, so I can customize it a little bit that still has some structure, because I can never get a planner that has exactly what I need, because everyone's life is different. Yes, this. I don't know. I need, it's the ADHD thing of like needing structure, but also hating structure sometimes. So I need enough to facilitate, but not so much that I feel locked in. And that's pretty much all of my life, planners or whatnot. Yeah, this is what I like, because I keep kind of a running to-do list. I'm sure you all do too. And prioritizing and like assigning things to certain days. And I don't keep my schedule in my planner. My planner is really just for like to-dos, like appointments and things. I have all on a Google Calendar that is shared with my husband, with my older kids too, where everyone's color coded and all my appointments are in there, and my phone gives me alerts, because it's not on the Google Calendar. It doesn't exist. But I don't always remember to carry my planner with me everywhere, but I go everywhere with my phone. So Notes apps helps a lot for that. Lately, I've been carrying a lot more stuff around with me, because I'm almost always bringing work stuff to do on the go. I mentioned in my introduction that my husband and I run a clinic. Well, I run the clinic. He is the psychologist. I take care of all of the like business side of things. Phone calls, billing reports, and emails, and anything administrative, in addition to doing some parent coaching and executive function coaching when I can. But since I've been doing that, I have to take my laptop with me everywhere because I don't necessarily get kind of set hours because I've got kids with schedules and it's crazy. So I kind of have to work wherever I am. Yeah, pretty much this. And a lot of that is because, number one, he never wanted to go into business. He never really wanted to do his own practice. But it got to the point where in order for him to do what he wanted to do, in order for us to kind of make the vision of what treatment for neurodevelopment could be, he had to leave his other clinic and has hated his boss. So that helped, but he never wanted to do, he is not an entrepreneurial spirit. It's funny. We are both like on the cusp of like millennials and Gen X, and he is definitely Gen X, and I am definitely more on that. I'm like right on the line. So I am much more into social media, entrepreneurial, also the ADHD brain, always a new idea, always a new hyper-focused rabbit hole to jump down. So when I quit teaching, I was kind of losing my mind a little bit, being home all day. I had always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom when my babies were little. I worked the first year my oldest was born. My husband was still in grad school, I worked part-time and we would trade the baby off in the parking lot at lunch. He would go to school. But after that, he was into internship years. And so he wasn't going to be able to be home with the baby. It didn't make sense. I wasn't making enough money for us to hire childcare. So we switched things up. And I stayed home for several years. As much as I always wanted to do it, and I knew it was like the best thing for my kids, I struggled to feel productive and feel like I was ever getting anything done, even though I was exhausted I felt like I was busy all day long, and then get to the end of the day and nothing would be done. Dishes, house was still, it all just looked like it did when it started. I was like, I'm here all day. I feel like I'm doing things all day. But if you look around, there's no marker of productivity. And that was really hard for me when I first quit working. And I had a point. I remember. So I started getting more into my photography. I always loved it. I shot for my college newspaper. I enjoyed kind of more the candid photography, but I went deep down that rabbit hole and then studying business and entrepreneurship and all of this stuff. So by the time we were ready to start a clinic, even though neither of us have any formal education in business, I feel like I had a lot of knowledge from hyper focusing on business. So yeah, so I kind of just took over all of that. Number one, because he didn't want to, and I had knowledge, all those random bits of knowledge from any particular hyper focus you've gone down for a while could be put to good use. Social media, studying, and I had started doing a little bit of parent coaching before we opened the clinic. So setting up a website and getting an account, all of that stuff. So yeah, I manage all of that. That my path from my career path. Uh-oh, what happened? Did I lose my camera? Can you still hear me? Okay, let me figure out what's going on with my camera. I have the gold Stanley right now. I'll show you in a minute. Did my battery die or what? Maybe my battery died. Hold on, let me grab the other one. See, these are all things I have to figure out. If I can get the battery thing to open. No, it's not unplugged. It just disconnected because the camera disconnected because I think my battery is dead. This was one of the really annoying technical difficulty things I had to figure out because I'm not going to buy a dedicated streaming camera yet, but I have a really fancy DSLR for my photography that can do video and you can set it up as a webcam, but getting it all working was a royal pain. All right. Nope, we're not back yet. Why not? Everything's hooked in. See, thank you for putting up with me while I figure all this stuff out. Anything? Let's see. Switch to this for a second. Nope, didn't work. There we go. Okay. I'm going to plug this battery in. So I'm going to have to watch that. Figure out how much time the battery has before I need to take it a pause and change it. Yes, this. Okay. Thank you for saying I'm doing a good job. I think my voice is insanely annoying. So this is not a Stanley. This is one of my Stanleys. I have another one upstairs and I wanted the purple one and I went to get it and it was sold out. So funny story about the Stanleys. Let's see. That's legitimately what I had to do, was turn the camera off and turn it back on again once they changed the battery. I am going to watch this and see because I know when I'm filming with my camera, when it's recording, I have a 30-minute limit. But that shouldn't do anything when I'm streaming, so I don't know. Anyhow, at some point I'll get a camera that is meant more for streaming and not for I'm streaming with my really expensive fancy DSLR and it's certainly not needed. My ankle got weird. There we go. I'm planning to put some shelves up back here eventually, but I tend to mumble, so if I'm driving you crazy with that, tell me to speak up and open my mouth. I get lazy. Anyway, the Stanleys. So I live in Utah. And there is like a serious Utah mom influencer subculture here. I'm not a part of it. But I do have friends. And I follow a lot of people on Instagram. Although I've been spending a lot less time on Instagram lately, more time on YouTube. But Stanley released this Quencher cup a few years ago, and all of the moms in Utah went crazy because we're all addicted to Diet Coke. I'm sure you've heard some of the other Utah people. I don't know if you've been on any of Danny on Direct's streams. She has talked about the soda shops. And I think EDB may have talked about them at one point because there was a lawsuit between a couple of them. But they perfectly hold the 44-ounce dirty Diet Coke or dirty Dr. Pepper. Just trust me. They're fabulous. But Stanley was going to basically eliminate their 40-ounce Quencher and just do the 30-ounce. And anyway, there's this one, like, it's called the Buy Guide on Instagram. They do influencer reviews of products and things like that. And they were one who had recommended the Stanley Cup to a bunch of people, a bunch of the Utah moms. So when they found out Stanley was getting rid of them, they reached out to Stanley and partnered with them to keep the Stanley Quencher and kind of change the marketing around it. So kind of the influencer thing, limited releases, certain colors, seasons, yada, yada, yada. And so they basically saved the 40-ounce Stanley mug. So if you are a Utah mom and you don't have a Stanley, now it has gotten like insane. Because, like that subculture that is just like, I have to collect all the things and I have to have all the colors and the new one came out. And so they would have like these drops that would sell out like crazy. They do a little better now. They're at least able to keep like a few colors in stock all the time, but there would be like months where you couldn't get them, and then they would do a big drop, and there were not riots, but it just like increased this like frenzy of have to have it. And there's people who will have like 10 Stanleys because they have to have all the colors. I have 2. One for water and one for Diet Coke. But I have the old version. They came out with it because one of the problems is that the straw would always fall out. And when it was kind of tippy, and when it tipped over, it would spill. So they updated it with the 2.0. It's a little bit lighter. It has like a thing on the hand, and it has like a little silicone thing in the straw, so it holds the straw in place. So I need to get a 2.0, and I was going to get the purple one. I'm waiting for the exact color that I want, but I hesitated on the purple because it's just not quite the right purple. I'm not a huge like lavender fan. I like a purple. So anyway, that's the story of the Stanleys. But that's why I thought it was so funny, because it's been such a Utah mom thing. Like Target came out with like some limited edition ones, and they sold out in Utah in like minutes. And so people were like driving to California to go to Target and coming home with like trucks full of Stanley mugs and then selling them on like Facebook Marketplace for like $100. It's just those, it's a whole thing. I just can't. I don't know. I wait till everything goes on sale. It's kind of like a digital stampede. The equivalent of a stampede when everyone's on their phone. But yeah, so then when Emily D. Baker had her Stanley mug, and then Rob on Lawn Lumber was talking about his Stanley, I was like, my worlds are colliding. Anyhow. So yeah, I can't drink from a Nalgene. I always dump it all over myself. I even got one of the little like spout things you put in it, and I would still dump it all over myself. So I could never do the Nalgenes. But I used to have a Yeti. I still have a Yeti. It's smaller. It's only 32 ounces, but Stanleys really are that much better. They just keep things colder. I mean, it gets up to like, it can get up to like 110 here in the summer, but usually it's like in the high 90s, and then we'll have a couple of days where it's like 105, right? And I have boys. And so we are out all summer. We're at the skate park. We're out. It's hot. And I forget to get things out of the car and whatnot. But last summer was the first summer I had a Stanley. And I filled it up with just like ice water in the morning, stuck it in my cup holder in my minivan. And we went to the skate park and we were out. It was 102. I have like dark gray leather interior in my minivan, so it cooks up real good in there. We got in the car and I still had ice in my Stanley, and I was like, okay, it's better. It just is better. Yeah, it becomes a hyper focus sometimes, and then I have to collect them all. But I'm typically able to avoid a lot of things that way. There are a few things that I get where I have to buy all the things, but I do okay. It's more actually things for my kids than things for me. But also, particularly with things for kids, there's a lot of young brands here in Utah, particularly in Utah County where I live, which is weird because it's not like I don't know. Utah County is weird. I don't know how to explain it. It's not in Salt Lake City. It's not like the big metropolis, but there are a lot of small brands that are based out of Utah, for baby stuff and kid stuff in particular. And they have warehouse sales. And that is the thing. There's a lot. I mean, Serenoni blankets, Minky Couture blankets, like the big Minky blankets. Those are all from Utah. There's a great clothing company called Rags that is so sensory friendly. Like the fabrics are so soft. There's no tags. They're like stretchy. They make these cute little baby rompers that my 7-year-old still sleeps in his size 5-6 ones because they have a little bit of compression, but they're super soft. He uses them as pajamas, and he's my like sensory kid. And they're based here, but like that's those brands that kind of cater to that market. Their stuff is just more than I want to spend full price on, but warehouse sales are my jam. Yeah, see, I use the same one for a while. I'll like rinse it out a little bit. I did order a bunch of new straws for the Stanley, so I'll just like rinse it, switch out a straw. But yeah, I don't do dishes anymore because my husband's fantastic. A few years ago, after I got my diagnosis, I realized that that was one of the things that was like really just wearing on my confidence, my self-esteem, especially when I was a stay-at-home mom and not working. Like, really, you can't just keep up on laundry and dish. Like those two things you can't do. And Utah has a big like stay-at-home mom culture. So there's a little bit of pressure that way to kind of, I don't know. Everyone else can do the things. Why can't I do the things? Well, now I have my diagnosis, and I realize that there's a reason why I can't do all the things. And so I don't. And those two things were like, I would beat myself up over not being able to keep on top of dishes and laundry. I still need to get a handle on meal planning, but because that's another one. But dishes and laundry. So I found a laundry service, and I just keep my little bit older car with a little bit smaller house, and I pay someone else to do my laundry. And it's the best thing I've ever done for my own mental health. Yes. So I'm trying to decide how I want to do this, because this is kind of what I want the podcast to be, is ADHD stories. Tell your story of your diagnosis, how it changed your life, what you learned along the way, why you decided to seek diagnosis. That's the stories that I want to tell in the podcast. But I'm not ready to, I got to figure out this before I figure out how to do podcast stuff. But I also think that this is an important story for me to share. So I'll probably do a video here and share my whole road to diagnosis. And then later on, once I'm ready to do the podcast, I will maybe re-record it. Once I have a little more experience under my belt. So yeah, that's the plan for the diagnosis story. I will put that on this is my book of making a list of things for the channel. So if you have any ideas, questions, things you'd like me to address, in particular, let me know, because I really want to make sure that I'm making videos that are not just what I think people want to hear, but that are actually helpful. So that's where this community is so great. What did I do with that pen? There it is. This is the color I wanted to use tonight, and I stuck it in a drawer. Anyway, I want to make the channel work for the community. I have a lot of topics that I teach to parents, which is probably what I think tomorrow I'll hop on and live stream, figuring out my kids' summer routines, job charts, and I talk about what we do to keep everyone from losing their marbles when school gets out and we don't have that routine in our lives. That's a big one for a lot of parents, and definitely with ADHD, we need some structure in our lives, but not too much. And my kids really struggle with breaks from school. Spring break, any 3-day weekend, it's absolute chaos. So I do my best to put a little bit of structure into our summer so that we're not just completely dysregulated messes. So I think that's what I'm working on tomorrow. Let's see. So this is really interesting. And this is certainly a topic. I guess I don't know equality if you are a man or a woman. It's so funny. We've been into this community for so long, and I know everyone's screen names, but that's about all I know. But I know for women in particular, being misdiagnosed with anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder in particular, or generalized anxiety being secondary. Okay, that's what I thought. So but then all of a sudden I was like, but do I know that? Or do I just think that? Anyway, thank you. A lot of us were misdiagnosed. I was misdiagnosed. Well, I do have general anxiety disorder, but I also have ADHD. And which one came first? Because living with ADHD is really hard and can be anxiety provoking and can cause depression. So there's a lot of comorbidities with ADHD. And it's a chicken and egg sort of thing. Did one cause the other, or are they just both existing at the same time? I can say with my kids, it is both existing at the same time because they were diagnosed when they were so young. They didn't have time to develop anxiety because they forgot their keys 20 times. So Yeah, this is exactly right. This is exactly right. They can mask each other. That's what happens. The anxiety can temper the ADHD. And then when you treat one, that's why it's interesting when you talk about medications. I talk about stimulant medications for ADHD. One of the side effects they'll say is, it can cause anxiety. But really, a lot of the time, what it's doing is unmasking the anxiety, right? So the anxiety hasn't had a chance to break through because ADHD doesn't let you focus enough on anything, right? Um, when my oldest was diagnosed, my father-in-law is also a child psychologist. We were talking with him about, some diagnoses, and he was saying, like, to us, well, yeah, the ADHD medication allows you to focus on everything better, including your anxiety. So usually it's very common to, once you start treating one, for the other to show up, and you kind of have to adjust the meds and get the right balance between the two. It can be a long, really annoying process. But also, the anxiety kind of grabs onto those ADHD things, right? And so then it's like, okay, is this ADHD or is this anxiety? What is this intrusive thought? Because both can have intrusive thoughts, right? So, for example, frequently when I leave my neighborhood, not right now because I'm not parking my car in the garage because it's full of stuff from we finished our basement, cleared everything out, put in the garage. So, but I would always forget if I closed the garage door or not. And for a while, I was not on anxiety medication at the time. I've been on and off, and again, another story for another time. But I was like, okay, is this anxiety like telling me you need to go check and make sure the garage door is closed? Or am I just worrying about this because there have been so many times when I've driven away and left the garage door open because of ADHD? So that anxiety can kind of mess with you, and that's a lot of how with women the ADHD can get misdiagnosed, because when you are explaining to your doctor, I always have to check and make sure I have to drive back and check the garage door. Well, that sounds like an anxiety symptom, but it's not an irrational intrusive thought, right? Because I have driven away and left the garage door open and either had to drive back, or I'm calling my neighbors and be like, can you just step outside and see if I close the garage door? So it's a real thing, right? But like, yeah, I know a lot of people who, I know someone from when I was younger that she had severe OCD, just crippling OCD as a kid. And it was before they used to diagnose OCD in kids. They didn't think it was something that happened until you were older. And so, they're going to therapists, they're doing all these behavior modification things, trying to figure out this explosive behavior that this child was having. Massive temper tantrums, throwing things around the house, just explosive temper. And finally, eventually, she had a panic attack over kind of not a natural disaster, but in Utah, we don't get tornadoes. Well, a tornado hit downtown Salt Lake City and triggered a panic attack. And they finally identified that it was OCD. So they start treating the OCD. And prior to that, she'd done phenomenally at school. She was everything was perfect, got everything done, all of that. Start treating the OCD, all of a sudden, can't focus, can't get anything done at school. And at this point, she's, 13, 14 years old. So, yeah, one can mask the other, right? The OCD was keeping the ADHD in control. As soon as the OCD was treated, this ADHD popped up. And And so then it became time to treat both. So it's really common for one to mask the other. But yeah, for women, it ADHD presents very differently in girls and women. And I am definitely going to do multiple videos. We'll talk about this a lot. But everyone thinks that, when they think of ADHD, they think of hyper little boys bouncing off the walls, right? So the little girls with ADHD who their hyperactivity looked like never stopping talking in class, but who were smart enough to make it through school, they're not disruptive enough to get the attention, right? And then especially the inattentive subtype, and girls are more likely to be inattentive subtype, which is very difficult to identify because, again, they're not causing a behavior problem. So they're not getting the attention of the teacher. They're just off in la la land. And those girls were getting misdiagnosed with learning disabilities. But it wasn't a learning disability. It was they were missing instruction because they were unable to focus. They were daydreaming. They were missing pieces of instruction. It's really only been in the last 5 to 10 years that clinicians' research has caught up with the fact that, there's these different presentations. The executive functioning is such a huge part of ADHD and is actually the primary part of ADHD, that the hyperactivity is a result, not necessarily a cause, right? So, in the clinic in general, particularly in the pandemic, was a big time for women to get diagnosed. The pandemic increased diagnosis across the spectrum. Kids are finally home from school and their parents are realizing how little they can focus on school when they're having to do it at home with their parents instead of at school. So diagnosis in kids went up too, but in women in particular, in the last 5 to 10 years, diagnosis increased exponentially, which is great. We're identifying it now, right? Unfortunately, for those of us who didn't, I only received my diagnosis 4 or 5 years ago, officially. Again, we'll go through that whole story. But yeah, it's a huge problem. So many women and girls were missed. And then it led to a lot of anxiety, depression disorders, or exacerbated anxiety and depression. Just because you're sitting feeling like, why can't I make this work? What is happening when your coping strategies eventually fall apart because the demands of life change or get to be too much for your coping strategies. So yeah, anxiety and ADHD in women, it's a thing. Yeah. And, again, they can be comorbid as well. A large number of kids with ADHD have dysgraphia. And it can come with dyslexia and dyscalculia as well. So the thing is with ADHD is it's a neurodevelopmental disorder, right? So something in the development of the brain is different. And so is autism, and so are these specific learning disabilities. They are all neurodevelopmental disabilities. And so they tend to overlap quite a bit and they tend to flock together because our brains develop differently. And so if it's already developing a little bit differently, it can also develop differently in another area. So there's a lot of overlap with that. There's then also a lot of overlap with giftedness. So you get what we call the twice exceptional kids. and adults, twice exceptionality. And those kids often get overlooked with diagnosis. They also don't get a lot of support because they're really smart. So their grades are good, but they're absolutely not reaching their potential because they have something that's getting in the way. That's a category that I fall into, and my 3 kids as well, is this twice exceptionality. And then that's where it gets really rough, and it gets hard to kind of get schools to understand it and to provide good accommodations. When your grades are good, then why do you need special ed, right? Why do you need accommodations? Why do you need some change? So yeah, it's the twice. We'll talk a lot about twice exceptionality too. But then, twice exceptionality can also be gifted with a learning disability, not just ADHD. So those kids happen too. Yeah, well, when I was a kid, we didn't have ADHD. I was like, well, yes, you did. It was there. Just those kids didn't get help, right? And if you look at research outcomes on kids with untreated ADHD, they're not great. I mean, those are the kids who were just the class clown. They were always in trouble. They were, getting sent to the principal's office. A lot of them drop out of school. There's extremely high rates of substance abuse and undiagnosed and untreated ADHD. Incarceration, life expectancy is lower. So yeah, whenever you get some grandma or whatever, they just need more discipline. When I was a kid, we didn't have ADHD. Well, you didn't have the diagnosis, you didn't have the support, and those kids suffered a lot. Hi, I'm so happy you guys came to hang out. Trying to figure out this whole streaming thing. It seems to be going okay. I don't know. We'll figure it out when I start trying to add more complicated things and sharing screens. And one of the problems with sharing screens for me is going to be that, for example, when we're doing body doubling streams, I'm going to be doing a lot of work that has private information. So making sure that I don't share a screen that is a HIPAA violation. I have to be extremely intentional about double checking what I'm sharing on the screen, but it's looking like I can kind of check as I'm figuring out StreamYard. Ugh, I'm so sorry. It's so hard. The medication thing. So I'm going to talk, a lot of times, let's see, I'm going to put non-medication treatments and strategies. Because when they work, it can be miraculous. When they're not working and you're having to make all those changes and try and figure it out, and it's such a long, laborious process to get all the right balance. And then right now, with the medication shortage, it's kind of a nightmare. My kids are very dependent on their medication right at this point. We've been talking a lot about how we need to start working on some other things so they are less dependent. 2 of mine are going to always be on some kind of medication. I don't necessarily foresee a time when they would be able to do, both of them can't put a sock on without their meds. We've had to take medication breaks for one reason or another. And it is heartbreaking to have your kid just on the ground crying, please, please, can you just give me my medicine? I can't do it. Ugh, heartbreaking. But right now, another one of my kids' medication is out of stock, back ordered at every pharmacy within a 30-mile radius. I have called them all, and none of them have it. And no ETA on when it might get there. And this is a kid who we just have barely gotten to stable. And when I mean stable, like, I don't know, I'll share more about his story at some point, but let's just say that this school year has been probably the most stressful that I have ever had, and that's saying something. And there was a point when I thought we were going to have to hospitalize my child, who's very young. And we just got him to the point where he's like stabilized, and the talk of I don't know what words YouTube likes, but there wasn't ideation so much as, but feeling like they were not would never be able to do it. So he's not in that place at this moment, and so not having his meds is, it's only been 2 days, but man. And yeah, this one is Adderall, but we have also had trouble getting generic Concerta in the past. And it's super hard. So the thing with these stimulant medications is that they're a controlled substance. And so there are a lot of regulations around it. You can only get 30 days at a time, and you can't refill your prescription sooner than 27 days. So it makes it a little tricky when you're trying to plan vacations and things. If you're like not going to be around and their meds running out falls in that window, it's a whole thing. But I do not believe that mail order is available for stimulant medications. And right now, nobody has it. It's not available. There is not enough coming from the manufacturers for a number of reasons. But I'm about ready to start writing to senators and stuff and be like, listen, you guys got to do something, because it being such a controlled substance is part of the problem. They're only allowed to manufacture a certain amount at any given time. And like I mentioned before, since the pandemic, diagnoses have increased. So more people are getting on medications. And then it started with Adderall. There was a shortage, number one, because of the increase in diagnoses, but then there was also one manufacturer that wasn't able to produce for a certain amount of time. So there's not as much supply as usual, and then an increase in demand. So then Adderall got back ordered like crazy. And so then people started eventually switching to Concerta, which then made it so Concerta was having problems. So I don't know what the solution is. I know one thing I'm looking forward to is Vyvanse, which is a really good medication for ADHD. It's been under patent for, like, the manufacturer gets 20 years, I guess 20 years actually, where you can't produce generics. So you've only been able to get name brand of Vyvanse, and it's ridiculously expensive. Julia, I'm sure if you say you're on Vyvanse, you know. You can only get name brand. It's really expensive. Well, February of this year was when the patent was up on Vyvanse. They got a 6-month extension because they're doing research on kids under, I think, down to age 4. So they were able to get 6 months more. But later this year, by fall, we should have generic Vyvanse available, which hopefully will help ease some of the medication crisis that so many of us are finding ourselves in. I just finally got my own prescription to start trying to figure out my own medication 2 months ago, and I haven't ever been able to fill it because the dosage that I've been prescribed has not been in stock. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Vyvanse being an option. It tends to have fewer side effects for a lot of people, and it being a generic is going to really help a lot. Let's see. Yeah, that's the thing, is each medication is different for all kids, or for all people, I should say. I talk about kids a lot just because I have 3 kids with ADHD, and in our clinic we see a majority kids, and I've been working as a parent coach for so long that I'm always talking to parents of kids with ADHD. So I got to get out of the habit of just talking about kids with ADHD. It's really hard to figure out what meds work for you and what meds don't. You know, we had one of the things that caused a lot of the problems we were having with one of my kids this year was a bad reaction to a medication, and it just started a cascade of events. Yeah, we've had to pay out of pocket for medication in the past, with different insurances we've been on, and man, we were paying for generics and it was still insanely expensive. So yes, we're all kids at heart. And ADHD brains are always just a little bit extra childlike. Makes us fun. I think I missed a few things in the chat here, so I'm going to scroll up and see. Debbie, I just saw this one. I'm sorry about that. Trauma definitely exacerbates anything you've got going on. Oof, sorry. Yeah, anything extra, right? In addition to what you're already dealing with, just they pile on top of each other, and grief and trauma. Oof. I hope that you have gotten some of the help you need. Yes, I've used GoodRx in the past. I used it when we had to pay out of pocket, because it was actually, so we had a high deductible plan. And it ended up being a lot better for us to pay the cash pay with the GoodRx than to attempt meeting our deductible. Because paying, even for generic, the cash pay rate was like $250 a month each prescription. And we had multiple of them in our house at once. So GoodRx brought it down to about 100. That was helpful. But for like, I did have to buy name brand Concerta last month because we couldn't get it. And even the name brand with a manufacturer coupon end, I don't believe GoodRx has a name brand coupon. Anyway, we had a coupon for it, but it was still about $400 to get the name brand. Freaking expensive stuff. Man, the medication is so tricky. And non-stimulants, no one in my household has had success with non-stimulants. So, but I do know a lot of people who they love it. So finding what works for you. all of my kids had very different reactions to trying a non-stimulant. And none of them were good. They did not work for us. So, but I'm not a psychiatrist. I am not a doctor. I just am someone who's had a lot of experience going to psychiatrists specifically for ADHD. So, this is not medical advice. Yeah, so Ritalin was the only medication that was available for a really long time, and they were diagnosing it, or they were prescribing it with much too high of doses. And Ritalin's a great medicine, um, but it's also not. It's got a lot of side effects, and it's not like a gentle medicine. Um, and so I kind of gave, all stimulant medications a bad name for a long time because it was the only option. They prescribed it in too high of doses, and so kids would be kind of out of it, like, oh, they're just drugged up. And we've come a long way with medication options. And I am so grateful for that. So very grateful. So, are you talking about, there's a couple of them out there. I just lost the name of it. Hold on, give me a second. Endeavor. Let's see. I think that's the one. It's the one I've seen a lot of ads for anyway. It's interesting. So, I don't know. I'm skeptical. I need to look at more research because it kind of seems to me a lot like neurofeedback. And the thing about neurofeedback is the research is just showing that it doesn't generalize outside of that setting. So while it may help with focus in that room when you're doing the neurofeedback, I don't know if you're familiar with neurofeedback. But once people are leaving and going about their everyday lives in school and other settings, they're not getting the same results. And neurofeedback can be incredibly expensive. And so any minimal results that you're getting just don't seem to me anyway to be worth the investment of time and money that it costs to do neurofeedback, especially when you have research outcomes that show so much more benefit from other treatment modalities. So usually first line of defense is getting some medication on board and then working on therapy and strategies, because it's hard to learn those strategies and stay consistent with them without the help of the medication. And then once you've learned the strategies, a lot of times people can go off medication or only take it at times when they really need to focus, or especially as you get into careers, where you can self-select into a career that you really enjoy, then it's a lot easier to focus on it because we like it and it gives dopamine and it's not boring. Even though there's sometimes boring days. So you take the meds on the boring days. But yeah, it's so if the medication has failed, then maybe I would look into things like a brain balance, neurofeedback. But according to the current research, this doesn't seem to be worth it's a lot of time to do it like every day for an hour sort of amount of time. And then it's crazy expensive. Insurance doesn't cover it. And then you're maybe going to get minimal results that then won't generalize to other settings. That's how I feel about neurofeedback. So the video game thing, it has kind of those vibes to me. So yeah, I'd need to see the research on generalizability before I would be willing to recommend it. Just to say that. Yes. I'm going to write that down just like that. Kids diagnosis doesn't mean they can't be successful. Yeah, we talk a lot about that, how the goal is really to get through school, through high school with some self-esteem intact. So whatever it takes to do that is the key. Because even once you get to college, you can self-select a lot more of your class. You have more, you have generals, but even within the generals, you can usually choose a class that is at your best time of day or is more interesting, or you can take one class at a time. Like, there's so many more options for how to make it through college if you need a college degree for your career. And having good accommodations in place always helps, but and knowing what you need, knowing what works for you, and not holding yourself to some standard of, I have to take 12 credits and I have to finish in this amount of time, and finding a path that works for you. But man, secondary school, middle school and high school is brutal on these kids, because they go from elementary school, that transition to middle school, so many demands on executive functions, and they just can't keep up. And so then they just start to feel terrible about themselves, and then it spirals, right? So it's keeping that self-esteem intact, finding good communities to belong to, finding a place, getting the right supports in place at school. It's critical. Getting the right teachers, moving their schedule around so they're with the right teachers. That's been massive for my kid. We sat down with the counselor and the special ed teacher and said, okay, which teachers should he have? And he's taking, accelerated math and honors English and honors biology. Like, he's a really smart kid, but his executive skills are. So finding the teacher that understands your kid and likes them and sees their strengths, sees their potential, and is willing to work and be flexible in how they do things. Huge. Let's see. Bless you. Good teachers. Like, all kids will do best with the best fit teacher, right? But for these kids, it's like make or break. Sometimes life or death, legitimately, being with the right teacher who is willing to understand them and work with them, and not just send them to be disciplined all the time. My teaching, so I taught special ed. Most of my teaching was in a unit for kids with severe emotional and behavioral disorders. It was a combined community mental health program in the schools. So we had school staff and community mental health staff together. So I was the teacher. I had my aide, who was another district employee, and then we had behavioral aides and therapists and a psychiatrist on the unit. So these were big behaviors. Kind of the last line of defense before inpatient hospitalization, really. So yeah, we had a lot of kiddos with a lot of, big mental health needs, a lot of trauma. But I taught at kindergarten and first grade, so it was a lot of severe ADHD, couple autism spectrum, a lot of oppositional defiant disorder, and then combined with some rough family situations. But having my own kids go through school with their unique needs. The teachers who, there are teachers who make things harder. And then we have teachers who are basically family at this point. And oh, am I so grateful for them. Let's see. Julia, this is such a great comment. 8 a.m. honors theology, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. 12:35 p.m. honors history, Tuesday, Thursday is my first class. See, I would have been fine with the 12:30 class. That 8 a.m. class, I not do mornings. I am definitely a delayed sleep phase cycle gal. My brain would not be turned on at 8 a.m. for an honors theology class. Nope, not gonna happen. I was mostly through college able to stack my schedule fairly well, where I only had classes on either Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, which was great. I went to school in Hawaii, so it was nice to have some days to go to the beach, study. But yeah, towards the end of my, let's see, I went to BYU Hawaii. My office is in my basement, and so even though it is like, it was close to 80 degrees today, if I'm down in my office, I am in a hoodie, thick socks. I have a blanket on my lap. I have a heating pad on my back and a space heater down here because my basement is like 25 degrees colder than the rest of my house. So, and I have really poor circulation with an autoimmune condition, and I'm always freezing. So I always have a couple of hoodies down in my office. Yes, BYU Hawaii. Very small campus, which was great for me. Class sizes were small. Like my like freshman biology class that is usually like a auditorium class of, a couple hundred kids in it, had 35. Class sizes were really small, and the beach was right there. So I could go and swim and get all that activity and then go to the library for a couple hours to do homework. It was a wonderful place to go to school. I miss it all the time. We went with my parents to Maui this year, but last year my husband and I that's where we met. We were able to go back to Oahu for the first time since we graduated, which would be 20 years ago. This December was when I graduated with some roommates, and it was amazing. This was a thing. It was really weird. I mean, I grew up in Utah, so I was used to 4 very distinct seasons. Snow in the winter. And then we went to Hawaii, and so like I would, time blindness, right? I would kind of gauge time passing by the weather changing. So I went to my first semester in Hawaii. Sorry, I hit the microphone. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. And started in August. Midterms were in October. And I was like, how can it be midterms? The weather's exactly the same as it was like a minute ago. It's really hard to judge time passing when it's always, between 70 and 75 degrees and sunny. Started to figure it out after I've been there for a little while. There are seasons, at least where I was on the North Shore. So we had a rainy season in the winter, and you could tell who lived there and who were tourists because we would be in jeans and hoodies because it had dropped 3 degrees, and the tourists were wandering around in their short shorts and bikini tops. And we're like, it's freezing. I was spoiled. And yes, I miss it. all the time. And we didn't intend to end up in Utah. We tried very hard not to. We applied to graduate schools everywhere, and this was just the place that just kept being the right decision. So 20 years later, we're still here. I agree 100%. 8 a.m. is too early. If I could sleep the hours that my body wants to sleep, it would be from about 1:30 till 10. Unfortunately, that schedule does not work when you have children who have to get up for school. Fortunately, my husband does a lot of the mornings with the older kid. He drives him to school. He has to leave at 7:40. My other son leaves at 7:35, so he does a lot of that with the two older boys. And then my other son has to get on the bus at 8:35. And I hate it. And I always want to go back to bed. And oftentimes I do. And then I have a million things that I need to get done later in the day. But my brain works a lot better at this time of day. I've heard these are really cool. We have a place that just opened up down the street that does these, but I don't know if I could handle it. Yeah, I don't know if my brain could. It'd probably be really good for me, but I don't know. I think the time blindness thing, time would go so slowly. I don't know if I could handle it. Idiopathic hypersomnia. Interesting. I haven't heard of that. I probably have that. I do require more sleep, but I also have, again, an autoimmune condition that comes with a lot of fatigue. So I am working on that with a new doctor. And sorry, I got distracted. ADHD. That's why we're here, right? Anyway, I'm working with a new doctor next week, which is going to include most likely an extremely strict inflammation diet, elimination diet for a while, and I'm not looking forward to it. So I am drinking as much Diet Coke as I can this week and eating all the things, which I'm sure won't help me when I have to go off of all the things and detox, and I'm going to have headaches and it's going to be a mess, but I got to get some of this stuff under control. And you can all enjoy grouchy me while I detox from sugar and Diet Coke next week. Yeah, I'm going to write this down. Pathological demand avoid. I don't know how much long. I don't know how those guys do 7-hour live streams. I guess they're usually talking with other people too. My mouth is going to stop working in a minute here. Pathological demand avoidance is a really interesting topic that I'm adding to the list for future videos. See, this is my problem is I don't think I should do a sleep study. I've done an at-home sleep study just to check for apnea. I don't know, a year and a half ago. I did not have any apnea. I don't know if I could do a sleep study because I don't think I could fall asleep unless they let you take sleeping pills. Because I'm sure that wouldn't give you an accurate result because sleeping pill is going to make you sleep longer than you normally would. My insomnia. I am very particular sensory wise. I don't sleep well in hotel rooms, places like that. I don't sleep well ever. So put me in an unfamiliar bed, an unfamiliar environment, and then only like attached things to you. I think I would die. I cannot do things attached to me when I'm trying to sleep. I know. I'm just able to drink Diet Coke again because I was on a medication for about a year and a half that made anything with carbonation taste like dumpster juice. So it was really depressing because I was like, but when I'm stressed, I need a Diet Coke. It's the only thing that makes me feel better. I don't drink alcohol, so that might be part of the problem. I just go straight to the Diet Coke. So I've only been able to drink it again for like a month, and then I'm going to go on this diet that's going to make me not do anything. It's going to be sad. It's going to be like living on quinoa and chicken breasts for a month. I don't know. I have no idea what it's going to be. I have an appointment next week, or we'll go over the whole plan, but I'm not looking forward to that part. Oh, yeah. Nope. Nope. No way. I'm not sleeping. I would never. When we were dating, my husband used to torture me by, like, this was in the era when taller socks were a thing. I guess they're becoming a thing again now. They were taller and then they got shorter and taller again. But he would just take the top of my sock and just pull it down a little bit. It's like, nobody trusts me with any state secrets because all you have to do is pull one sock down and not let me fix it. I'm out. Okay, so my camera's still going. So it must have just been the battery and not the 30-minute thing. So that's good to know. I do have 2 batteries, so I can just keep switching them back and forth if needed, but I'm not planning on doing 7-hour live streams. Nope. No, thank you. Oh, see, but I don't know. I'll let you guys know what they tell me next week. It's going to be kind of eliminate everything for a while. Sugar. I've done keto before. I've done Whole30 before. It's going to be a mess. But I really am trying to get some symptoms under control that traditional medicine has been unable to help. And yes, Julia, I am. Whole30 is kind of like paleo. There's a bunch of books. It was a big thing, like, I want to say 10 years ago, maybe. Everybody's doing Whole30, but it's no dairy, sugar, I know it's no dairy, no sugar, no wheat. I think there's certain grains that were allowed. I can't remember. It's very similar to like a paleo type diet, but with increasing a lot of fruits and vegetables. And you do it for 30 days. So I did that, and I also tried doing the autoimmune protocol diet, which is like Whole30, but with even less foods that you can eat. It was too hard, and I wasn't getting any results. So I have a feeling this one is going to be more similar to that, but under the direction of someone who can give me the right supplements and kind of walk me through the process, and then also the reintroduction phase, and having someone you're accountable to and paying for helps. But yeah, I'm just at the point where I got to get some of my symptoms, particularly extreme fatigue and chronic joint pain, under control with my weird autoimmune disorder that doesn't totally have a name. I am picky about socks, as are my kids. They find one thing, one like brand, type, style, height, all of that they'll do. My youngest doesn't like any clothes. He wears them in public, but the minute he is home, socks and shoes are off first. Shortly thereafter, shirt will be gone. Eventually, he's in his underwear. He does not like clothing. He has a lot of sensory stuff, and he gets hot. And if he's hot, everything must come off immediately. Fortunately, he doesn't do that in public places. I don't know how we've lucked out with that, but he does not wear clothes at home. I will write that down. Lion diet. I'll check it out. Interesting. I struggle with green juice. I can't make it taste good. So I'll do it for a while, but I don't know. I gotta get it. I will definitely share how it goes. My autoimmune, long story short, they started testing me for lupus when I was 13 because of some anti-nuclear antibodies and some symptoms. But it never changed. Like, it all stayed really stable for about 4 years. So they were like, well, it's not lupus. But we don't know what else it is. Fast forward 25 years, and I thought for sure they have come up with a diagnosis for whatever I have by now. So went back to a rheumatologist, try and figure everything out, and nope, same. You have an undifferentiated connective tissue disorder with lupus features. It's a big fat, you got something, but we don't know what it is. And here, try this medication. That medication was not good. So, yeah, basically, medicine doesn't have a lot of answers for me. So I am trying more of a functional, holistic method, but this particular place that I'm going to, they're kind of a mix of East versus West, because I don't know. I'm a social science major, and I really like to rely on research. So I don't like to go too far on the woo side. Just, I'm a skeptic, and I want to see the research. Show me the peer-reviewed research. So this place is a little bit like a crossover. They do a lot of blood work, blood tests. They just go a little bit deeper, and then they treat with, if there's like a condition that needs to be treated with a medical doctor, with an endocrinologist or whatever, they will work with your doctor on that. So it'll be interesting. I have known a couple of people who have had really great success at this particular place, so I'm hopeful. Thank you. Yes, I have questions. I grew up in Salt Lake City, but outside of Salt Lake City, in kind of some smaller towns in Utah and in Idaho, which you guys have seen on some of the recent trials, there's some people that, I don't know, maybe it's like that small town everywhere. I just know here because this is where I lived. But we had some family that would get into like every MLM and every weird fringe group and every new woo, we're going to read your eyeballs and tell you what vitamins you need to take kind of thing. And that particular branch of my family is a little nutso. And anyway, there's a lot of stories. I probably shouldn't talk about, because if any of them were to stumble upon the channel, it would not be good. I love them dearly, but they got into some weird ideas over the years. And so as a result, I've always been very skeptical of anything that kind of approaches that. I do use some essential oils for certain things. Like when my kids have a cold, I'll put breathing stuff on their chest. That makes sense to me. I'm not going to rub some random thing on my foot and expect that it's going to cure something in another part of my body. So that's how I feel. It was just so funny when it was the Paltrow trial, I think, was the one that like had me the most like, oh my gosh, because they were from small town Idaho. The trial was in Park City, which was about a 45-minute drive from where I live. And those like areas, there's just so many cultural differences that are so hard to explain if you haven't seen it and like been in this kind of culture with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and this like some extreme right-wing stuff happening in certain areas, but then Park City is like a totally different beast. But yeah, like when what's his face's daughters were testifying, I was just like, some of this is just so Idaho. But like can't explain it without just saying just that is so Idaho. And yeah, the Vallow trial as well. Like they're just some things. Idaho is such a beautiful place in some areas. Other areas I'm like just driving through so much nothing. But there are some amazing places and some amazing people. And then there's just some small town weirdness that gets mixed in with not the doctrine of the mainstream Mormon church, but some of the cultural things when you have a predominant religion in any place, right? Bible Belt, same thing. Like there are cultural things that are not necessarily from scripture or from any particular religious doctrine that people adopt as culture, and they get weird. So anywho, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole too much. Oh my gosh, share the link. They did an interview with Bubba. Justice for Bubba. Bubba is the hero. Okay. I'm writing that in my dump book, so I remember to go look at it. On Lumber Discord. Topic discussions. Bubba interview. Aw, cute Bubba. Checking on this puppy back here. Wish I could. She's down on the floor, so you can't see her. Maybe tomorrow. I'll be able to put her cute little face up. She is the sweetest, most amazing little dog. Amazing. Yeah, I definitely need to talk more about that too, about our decision to get a service dog and why, and the process of finding her and what she has already been able to do for my kids. She's amazing. Whatever. Bubba is the hero. If it weren't for Bubba. I have another dog who I feel like it would be a lot like Bubba. He's a very high energy dog. Sweetest thing ever. So she is a legitimate service dog. So there's kind of 3 different classifications for animals that help with this sort of thing. There's emotional support animal, which everyone just abuses that designation so that they can make their landlords let them have pets, have feelings about it. As Runkle would say, I have opinions on emotional support animals. Then there's therapy dogs who go through more training, but they're not trained to a specific task to one person. They're kind of trained generally to kind of do deep pressure, calm emotions, and it takes a very specific kind of energy of dog to be able to do that. And then there's service animals, and a service animal goes through at least 3 stages of training. So we finished puppy obedience. We're now starting with general obedience, and then we will do public access. They have to pass a canine good citizen test. Then they do public access, and there's another test for that. And then they do task specific, and they have to be trained to do at least one specific task for their person. So Charlotte is our service puppy. She's so cute. She's a standard poodle, phantom coloring. And she will be trained to do sensory support, to interrupt repetitive behaviors. So picking, chewing on his shirt, things like that. And also help with, he sometimes gets stuck in his speech patterns. He'll hit, we call them bumps, where he kind of repeats the same syllable or part of a word or sentence. So she will interrupt repetitive behaviors. She'll do anchoring, where we will tether her to my son in really busy public spaces. Like if we go to the zoo or someplace like that where there's a lot going on, he has a tendency to see something shiny and take off. So she'll keep him by us, either by tethering or by just kind of cutting him off and bringing him back to us. And then she'll be able to kind of help him identify when he's a kid who goes from 0 to 100 immediately. Like there's no middle ground. There never has been. Even when he was like a newborn, he was either perfectly happy or like screaming bloody murder. People thought I was torturing him. And he's just always been that way. And so she will be able to detect those emotional reactions early enough to intervene, basically provide deep pressure support, or just to alert him that he needs to step back and take a break. So those are her tasks that she's being trained to do. And she is just so emotionally intuitive. Oh, she's the sweetest, smartest little thing. She's like weeks ahead on her training already. She's only 4 months old. She's amazing. And she is just a soft, fluffy thing that feels like a living, breathing minky blanket. So we all adore her. And I'm going to end up probably with another one for my other son, because she's helped so much with his anxiety that, yeah, but the dog and the training is very expensive. So that is actually one of the goals of this channel. If I can get to monetization, that is where any money that is made will be going for a while, is pay for the rest of her training. We were able to save up about 2/3 of what we needed, but Yeah. I don't know. What other questions do you guys have? We're coming up on 2 hours here, which is awesome. Thank you for coming and hanging out, helping me figure this thing out. Tomorrow I will do more working and less just chattering, because I'm going to live work on some projects. So Spicy Time is going to be a little different on this channel. We're going to be more family friendly here. You guys are welcome to say whatever you want, but I don't use a ton of language that way unless I'm real fired up. And those are usually the times when I shouldn't, because it means that something at the school is happening that's messing with one of my kids, and going in with a fiery tongue is not helpful in those situations. And then I just immediately start crying anyway. So such is my life. I'm sure there will be topics that we've discussed that will approach needing to hit the 2-hour mark. Yeah, I definitely will. I'm going to put that on my list right now so I don't forget. Finding a service dog. It was a really interesting process. We found the most incredible breeder. You know, I am a big proponent of shelter pets, but when you're picking a service animal, you have very specific needs. Size-wise, temperament. You need to get it from a puppy to be able to do the training. You need the breeder to be working with them from the day that they're born on desensitization and things like that. So you can't really just get a shelter dog. You can't get any dog to be a service animal, particularly psychiatric service animals. But even like a diabetic or any other scent service animal, they need to be trained from very young puppies to do scent work. So it's a different process. We've done a lot of shelter animals in our life, but yeah. So this helps, but there's also tests that they can run, temperament tests. And the breeder that we picked used a different one that was actually specifically designed to identify working dogs. So therapy dogs, psychiatric service animals, scent service animals, and like, what do they call them? I want to say like yard dogs, but like more like police type work, like security type work. So yeah, interesting process. I will definitely go into that. Yeah, dogs are amazing. And this puppy, like, she is incredible. She is so tuned in. And, you know, she still has puppy brain. She gets distracted, but like when it's time to work, she is laser focused, and she really picks up on the emotions of everyone around, the kids in particular, and she'll just go up and start like snuggling them. And it is fascinating to see. She is really, really an incredibly special dog. There were a few in the litter that we could have chosen based on their results from the temperament test and the specific tasks that we need her to do. But yeah, she's more than I ever could have anticipated. So she's going to be amazing. Appreciate this. Yes, don't get my channel yeeted. I'm having too much fun. Let's see. There was another one I was going to click on, and I lost it. Yeah, so I didn't know it was necessarily 100 days, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff that it's good to expose. You know, the more exposure you have to different situations, people, sounds, all of that, the better. So she's been going since we got her at 8 weeks old. And I think she's 14 weeks now. Has it been? I think it's been longer than that. I don't know. We had her a while. Feels like forever. She's pretty much been going with me everywhere. So she has been to indoor skate parks in a warehouse. Very loud, very noisy. She's been to the dentist. She's been to the place where my kids get their haircut. She's been to multiple doctor's appointments. She's been, she goes everywhere. The climbing gym, my kids do rock climbing. She comes there. It's very loud and noisy. So that socialization is really important. But the breeder that we used also did something called early neurostimulation, starting at 3 days old with the puppies. So she was already exposed to quite a bit before we got her. She's awesome and she's extremely confident and only going to get more so because tomorrow she finally gets her last set of shots and then we can really take her everywhere. So super awesome. Helpful things to talk to your doc to help you get your diagnosis. Expand on that a little bit. I'm going to write this down. Is there something in like a particular question you have? Or more talking about the process of finding a doctor or what kind of doctor to go to? That's awesome. We do have like a little local amusement park that we could do something like that with if we needed to. But I mean, if we get, I'm sure we will go to Disney again at some point soon. We went 2 summers ago. One of my sons had a baseball tournament in Disney World in Florida. So we did that. We got the disability access pass for my son, and it was like the best thing ever. Don't shy away from any accommodations that you can get. You deserve them. You deserve to have a fun vacation too. That's a soapbox rant I will go on. But she's going to go everywhere with us. She'll travel with us, airplanes, everywhere. I don't know that we'll be able to socialize her to that too soon because we're not going anytime soon. Although I was there in the fall for a couple of days with my oldest and his marching band. But the other kids didn't come. Okay. So what if it's not? What if it's something else? What if it's not ADHD? What will that mean for you? For me, my view on it is it's less about good night, equality. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm having fun hanging out with you guys. Anyway, what I was saying is less about the letters, the alphabet soup, right? It's more about your individual strengths and weaknesses. So if you go to a doctor and all they do is give you a Vanderbilt checklist and it says no, go get more information. Find a neuropsychologist who specializes in ADHD and get a full comprehensive evaluation. It still may come out with you don't have ADHD, but it can give you a profile of what your strengths and weaknesses are, whether that lines up with any diagnostic criteria or not. What's your processing speed? What's your working memory like? What adaptive behaviors are you struggling with? What skills can you learn? What are your strengths? Let's use those strengths to accommodate for any weaknesses. Diagnoses are helpful to get specific treatment if you need it, right? If you need medication for ADHD, you have to have an ADHD diagnosis. But they aren't the be all end all, because they don't tell the full story, right? And everyone is different. There are commonalities, right? There are patterns that we recognize, and we've seen that, in this community as we've talked more to each other and heard more stories from Rob, Ian, and Emily and other people sharing about their ADHD. Yeah, there's commonalities, but there's also differences even in those similar threads. And I'm more interested in what your profile looks like and less in the letters that might be written on the top of the paper. So I guess my advice is just be brutally honest with your doctors. And if you disagree, if you have questions, ask. Get another opinion. Advocate for yourself. A doctor sitting and talking with you for an hour and having you fill out one form is not giving a full picture of who you are. Just be really honest about what your challenges have been since you were young. And keep coming here, talking to us. We'll help. I will help any way I can. Doctors kept telling me I was normal. I hate that word normal, but I get what you're saying. But I ended up finally being diagnosed. So BPD, bipolar disorder, or BPD, borderline personality disorder. As people use those initials for both things, and they're very different. And depression, anxiety, complex PTSD. Okay. So borderline. Okay. So complex PTSD and any PTSD can present really strangely as well. So, and again, these like ADHD in women, autism spectrum disorder in women, all these things, they look really different. But if it doesn't sound like you, if it doesn't feel like it's explaining everything, keep digging. And keep going to therapy and find a therapist that you resonate with. It's less about the credentials of the therapist and more about the relationship with the therapist. All the research shows that the key factor in whether treatment and therapy works is the therapeutic relationship. So if you're not jiving with the person, and I get how hard that is right now because everywhere in mental health has these enormous wait lists, right? But you will do better waiting another 6 months for someone who you fit with than working for 6 months with someone who you don't. Just scared of not being listened to. I get that. That's valid. I think we all can feel that. Because there's been times where we haven't been heard, right? Or where we have seen the world through one lens and been told it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, and then coming to the realization that it's something different. It's hard. It's really hard. I definitely went through a period where I had a lot of walls up, right? Because I felt like if I was my true, authentic self, people weren't going to stick around, because that had happened multiple times. Friends leaving at the drop of a hat, and I didn't know what had happened. Looking back on it, there were probably signs that I misread, right? And I could definitely be annoying. So yeah, it took some serious therapy to get to the point where it was like, I am not broken. Like, I am enough just the way I am. And that if people choose to leave, abandon, whatever, that it wasn't my fault. But it was hard. Yeah, and I imagine if there's a traumatic event in your past that you tried to talk about and you were shut down, that would absolutely increase that fear. 100%. Totally valid. I'm not a therapist. Funnily enough, that was what I initially wanted to go into. I'll tell the story of all the twists and turns in my career at some point too. But I definitely feel like I was directed to where I am now so that I can be doing what I'm doing now. Anyway, I'm sorry that you haven't been heard. And I hope you find some answers. And if in the meantime, you are always welcome in this community. We are absolutely happy to have you here. And we'll listen. The thing I have loved so much about this community and why I wanted to do this is, a lot of the things that this community has been able to do over the last year, give and support each other, and the positivity brought into the world, especially if you spend any amount of time on Twitter, which I did not do prior to Depth v. Heard. I had a Twitter account that I used so that I could enter specific competitions or raffles and things at photography events. That was the only reason why I had Twitter. I never did anything with it. Only reason I got back on was because I wanted to have alerts for when people were going live and whatnot, and specifically for Verdict Watch. That is one heck of a toxic place, Twitter. The positivity that this community brought into the world completely restored my faith in humanity. So many good people freely donating time, money to help other people, just for no other reason than to help. It's awesome. There's a lot of garbage on the internet. And I'm sure that at some point it will try and surface here. In the future when I need it. If any of you want to be a moderator, let me know. I have no idea how any of that stuff works, so I have a feeling it's going to be a mess. But yeah, so respectful to each other and kind, and doesn't matter your beliefs, your political leanings, opinions are able to be shared in a respectful way. And I don't know, it is not what I've seen in other spaces on the internet where you can't say a word without being lambasted. The reasonable minds can differ, right? Yeah, it's awesome. So that's what I want to foster here, is more an extension of that community. But obviously hoping to bring people who are not necessarily part of the law tube community, but are part of the ADHD community, and show them how we do things here. That it can be such a positive place. So, Julia, I am going to take you up on that when the time comes. You've been such a great support. I don't know that I would have actually done this without your encouragement over the last few months. So I appreciate it greatly. And hopefully I'm living up to expectations. Militantly wholesome. Yes. Yep. Just great people. Great people. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up here. I do have to finish up some boring billing reports, and I need the space on my screen to do that. So it's been really fun to chat with you all. Like I said, I think tomorrow I'm going to go live earlier in the day. I'm not sure exactly what time yet. I'll look at my calendar. So I'm in Mountain Time in Utah. So it is 11:23 p.m. here. It looks like probably between 10:30 and 11. So I'm going to say 11 a.m. And I can go for about 2 hours. I have to take Charlotte to go get her shots in the morning. But yeah, I'm going to be talking about, we're going to be doing some more body doubling. I'm going to stop talking for a little bit. Or actually, probably what I'll do is pull over my screen while I'm working so you guys can see what I'm working on. And I'll maybe chat slightly less and just kind of talk through what I'm doing. But I need to get my family systems for the summer in order, and I need to change some things up this year because my older boys are getting older, and what I've done in the past is just a little bit too, I don't know, it's not meeting our needs anymore. So I will have to do something slightly different for my younger and then for my older two boys. So yeah, coming up with systems. So if you have a kiddo and you want some support with getting some things set up for summer so you can survive, whether it's because you have ADHD or your kids do, both require some systems to be in place in order for us to not all want to kill each other in the summer. At least that's how it is in my house. Hold on, Julie. I'll answer that question in just a second. Or if you just have something else you want to work on, you want to come hang out while I work, that's cool too. That's the great thing about body doubling is you don't have to be working on the same thing. Just being in the same room as other people who are working increases your productivity. It's magical. So 11 o'clock Utah would be 10 Pacific, 12 Central, 1 o'clock Eastern. Yes. So yeah, if you're around, hop on. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight while I test out this live stream thing. I'm going to run my end credits. Which one is it? Let's see if I can figure this out. think it's the purple one. Where did my window go? What is happening? Technical difficulties. I am not a professional, so I'm not going to even say that one. Where did it go? There it is. Oh boy. All right, I'm going to try and run this end credit and see if it works. You're lovely. But I'm not a professional, so I'm not going to use the We Are Professionals rainbow just yet. I am a mess, but I'm here. No. We just have some similarities, okay? Okay, is this the right one? I don't know if it's going for you guys, and my camera turned off again. Professional. Have a good night, folks. This is not therapy. That's what the end credit's supposed to say. None of this is therapy, and none of this should go to a therapist. Go to a psychologist if you feel like you need to get a diagnosis. Don't do it here. I don't know why it's not playing and it froze everything up. So I'm going to end the broadcast. See you guys later.